Welcome to our AI Mastery. This is our blue belt level. And here we're going to share common questions that our hopeful experimenters have. And hopeful experimenter is just a nickname for our blue belt. And basically, this is the first level in our Pharos Digital Dojo where people have gone from curious or tentative, and now we're starting to experiment with some intention. And at this level, we're building more systems and we're identifying deeper integrations with using ChatGPT. Now, for the record, you probably have a whole bunch of horror stories. AI doesn't work because of this. The reality is, almost always AI failures are really truly system failures. If you have good systems and you have good humans, you'll get good results. If you have great systems, great humans, great results. And of course, if you've got bad systems or bad humans, bad results. So at this level, our hopeful experimenters are saying to themselves and others, this might actually help me. ChatGPT might actually be a good thing for my business. And for the record, you've heard a lot of horror stories. I guarantee they're out there. Almost always, I can pinpoint where it went wrong, and it almost always comes back to a lack of good processes. So, insight here, I want you to understand that ChatGPT in general, or specifically AI in general, is the foundation of our new standard operating procedures. So in the blue belt level, we are helping people implement systems for what they do in business. And here's the difference between my advice and what a lot of others will come out with. We focus on things we're good at and we find ways to optimize them. That is how we do things differently here. We're looking to enhance strengths, not blindly go down paths we have no expertise in. So we want to optimize what we know, and then we'll start to explore areas maybe we need to know better. So at this level, for clarity, we want to help you break down manual work into small, atomic, automatable steps. And by the way, if you've heard my theory, I won't go into the detail here, but we have been deeply inspired by several books. James Clear Atomic Habits is one of them. And again, if you're having lukewarm or bad results, it's almost always because there's a problem with how the system was created. And on our blue belt level, growth comes when we shift from using AI for one-off tasks to building lasting systems in our business. And again, here we have our people saying, I want to stop doing the same manual work twice and just automate it. And again, here we get into deep knowledge of our eliminate, automate, delegate framework. And just to give you context where people are, you will see our blue belt is roughly, it's the midpoint. The graduation from blue to purple is where we go from a hopeful experimenter. We're just learning the basics. We're building our confidence. And then we get into our stage 5, our purple belt, which we call the confident operator. And by the way, I have a lot of people coming to me saying, Jeff, I just want the shortcut. I want to skip this path. I want to jump forward. This is really, truly, we build the solid foundation to move forward. If we don't have a solid foundation, we shouldn't move forward. And by the way, I hear a lot of people, they went straight to, I'm going to say confident operator, maybe efficient integrator, without actually building the foundation of knowledge and confidence. So again, we have a very intentional process because after I've worked with ChatGPT for about 3 years, at least 10,000 hours, I want to make sure that people are confident and correctly confident, not hubris, not arrogance, but true confidence. And that's what we're building here. Now, I live and breathe in frameworks. I love mental models, and I love things like the Dunning-Kruger effect. And if you've not heard of it, I highly recommend you study it. The Dunning-Kruger effect basically says that when somebody is new to something, they have a false sense of confidence about their competency level because they don't know what they don't know. Now, conversely, on the other end of the spectrum, somebody who's an expert in something often understates their expertise because they know what they don't know. So, for example, when I first learned how to use ChatGPT, I was like, oh my God, I love AI. I'm amazing. I know everything I need to know about AI. Now I look at it and laugh because AI is such a massive series of fields. It's not one field, it's multiple. And there's so many different areas. I now know what I don't know. So I will say with confidence, I am a double black belt. I am an empowered advocate for ChatGPT, which is a field or subset or a product within the field of generative AI. But beyond generative AI, I'm just getting into machine learning, natural language processing. There's so many other things. So what I did and why I built this program is I want people to understand the body of knowledge. And one of the things we teach our white belt and yellow belt is what they need to learn to get to that double black belt stage. So we're building a layer of confidence. And now this is where we start to get into the practical. So the first 4 belts here are a little bit about learning how to ride the bike. Now we're going to teach you some fancy tricks, and we're going to teach you how to cycle at a higher level. So here are the 10 questions I hear the most at this level. And question 1 is, how do I turn my favorite prompts into a simple workflow I can use again and again? And I'm going to be honest, I don't always get this as cleanly as I've stated it, but the reality is a good set of prompts is a workflow foundation. And this is where we start to teach people how to think about how they do things. And there's some principles in learning and in education. There's something called unconscious incompetence, where we don't know what we don't know and we are not good at something. And then we get to conscious incompetence, where we know what we don't know, but we're still incompetent. And then we get into unconscious competence, where we know we're good at it, but we don't know why. And then at the top of the scale is conscious competence. That's where we know why we're successful. So I am going to preach this till I fall over at an end of my years. We need systems. And really, truly, what I love about generative AI is that if you define a system well and clearly, it will follow it. Now, the problem is if you define it badly, guess what? It will follow that as well. So the clearer our prompts are, and I don't allow anyone to really talk about workflow until they're consistently seeing the same results with their prompts, taking maybe different inputs, but creating consistent outputs. So what we do is we build a system, and we've talked about this in other videos, but here is first things first, we have to optimize our prompts. We need to make sure we understand what the inputs are. We need to understand the process steps. We also need to understand what quality control looks like, what the feedback loop is. And then we have our outputs or our desired deliverable. Once we can get that consistently in a manual system, then we can start to document it and optimize it as a digital workflow. So I do a lot of work on the ground, working on the workflow first, so that then we can transition into the digital and go quickly. So it's kind of a case of go slow to go fast. I think the US Navy has a saying, something about slow is smooth, smooth is fast. We need to make sure our workflow works before we try to automate it. By the way, I actually had a message from a friend of mine who said generative AI is doomed. It's destroyed my business. And surprise, surprise, what I found was one of his team had incorrectly set up a system. They were following a bad system, and it caused damage because there was no adult in the conversation saying, wait a minute, we need to look at this. So that's kind of a high level. And I will stress this for everybody. You are the adult in the conversation. It is up to you to make sure that ChatGPT is behaving and giving you good quality outputs. Anything that comes out where ChatGPT hallucinates or makes mistakes, that's on you. It's your reputation. So it's up to you to make sure that you are protecting your reputation and, quite frankly, your business. Question 2. What's the best way to document my process so I'm not starting from scratch each time? This is actually a pretty fun question, and it's a simple one. I am a nerd. I love nerding out about systems and thinking about ways we do things. And really, truly, if I'm being blunt, most people don't think about systems as much as I do, but I wish we would, because the reality is most people doing a task that's repetitive, maybe a little bit monotonous, we do it the same way more or less every time. So why wouldn't we just build it as a habit so that this is my system or process for this thing, so that we do it consistently every time? And by the way, the difference between a business that can grow a little versus one that can grow a lot is the quality of their systems. And a lot of people say, oh, it's the quality of my people. Well, the reality is, good people with great systems will do great things. Mediocre people with great systems will do good things. Whereas if you've got rock stars with bad systems and they follow those systems, you're going to get terrible results. So I can't remember who said it, but there is a quote that we don't rise to the level of our training and our employees, we fall to the level of our systems. So my take on life is either could be true, doesn't matter. But my take is, if systems impact us this much, why don't we build on them? So what we do, and again, I recommend all of you find what works for you. I will give credit to David Jennings with his book Systemology and his latest book System Champions. I believe that every system has to have a champion. And even a little bit further than that, every business needs to have someone who's a system champion to guide the entire thing forward. Because without the champion, systems will be sporadic at best, they'll fizzle, they'll fail. Now, I have a very simple way to do things. Whatever I do, especially things, if something is on a computer, this is easy. If it's in the real world and it's a manual thing, it takes a little extra effort. But whatever the thing is, I'll pick the best person on my team at that thing, and I will have them walk through it and talk their way through it, explaining why they're doing what they're doing, when do they do it, what's the order, why is that order important, what are some common mistakes, common pitfalls. And basically, we treat it as if it was a training exercise to teach the next rock star how to come in and become a rock star quicker. And basically, the video quality is important. The most important thing is the quality of the audio and the quality of the instructions. And then what I do, and this is magical and easy with tools like ChatGPT, I have a custom GPT I built. I will share that with my audience. It is for my paid community only, sorry. But basically what it does is it breaks down systems or processes into individual steps. And so what we do is we take that recording, the video, we transcribe it, and we feed it to either ChatGPT in general or my custom GPT. and we ask it to step by step build the process. And now here what we do, again, I'm the adult. I'm going to call this the first draft. I will then take my rock star person and I'll ask them if the output from ChatGPT is good. Again, I'm asking them, does this make sense? Is it the correct order? Is it the correct points? And then what I do is I'm going to give it to somebody on my team who either doesn't know anything about that particular area or who might be, let's be polite, underperforming in that area. And I will ask them to walk one step at a time, literally following the instructions exactly as they understand it. And it is funny because this is where you will see the difference between your rock stars and those who are struggling. The ones who struggle may not necessarily understand the vocabulary, the order, the decision-making process. And basically what we want to do is see if they follow that process to the letter, do they deliver the result we were hoping for? And surprise, surprise, the answer is almost always no. So we want to ask them where they were confused, why they made the decisions they did. And basically, we're then going back to our best team member and asking how we could improve it to solve those gaps. Now, that might feel tedious, but really, truly, I encourage you, at the very least, identify the path that cash takes through your business and document and optimize the cash incoming cash flow process so that you can optimize cash flow. Once you solve cash flow, almost every other business problem can be solved with said cash flow. So that's my little rant. We get into that deeply in the dojo. Question 3. How do I know when it's worth turning an experiment into a full system? Okay, in case you don't believe I'm a nerd or I'm not obsessed with systems, this is where it gets really exciting. So for every business experiment I design, and yes, I use the scientific method, I'm obsessed with it. I always have a hypothesis. Here's what I think will happen. And then I design an experiment and say, here's how I think I can optimize that. But this is where it becomes fun, and this is where accountants have a heyday, engineers as well. Once we identify the experiment, we also build either metrics, let's call them that, or KPIs, key performance indicators. But basically, the idea is, how do we measure incremental improvement? And by the way, I prefer exponential improvement over incremental, but exponential improvement has an element of luck to it. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to identify the metrics. And once we reach what we will call a threshold of success in an experiment, that's when we go full blown and spread it across the business as a system. So as an example, and this is a really simple math one, if we have 100 employees doing the same role, I know that's a big number, but let's pretend, Pareto tells me that 20% of my employees will generate 80% of my positive results, and that the bottom end 20% will generate 80% of my problems. So that's how an average, if we have 100 employees and the mid mark of 50 is the average, the top people, the ones who hit 100, are offset by the bottom people at 1 or 0. So basically what we want to do is move everybody up. So what I do is I break a team down into layers of 5. I like to stratify things. So you're going to have your top 20%, your second 20%, your middle 20%, your below average top 20%, and then your bottom 20%. And the idea is really simple. If I can elevate my bottom 20% up into the next category, and everybody else I can shift up at least one category, I've raised my average from 50 up to somewhere closer to probably 70. So that's the way I like to do things. That's the ideal world, not always reality, but it's the ideal. So that's what we try to do. And once we get good results, that's when we roll it out across the system. So usually what I will do is I will experiment. I'll get my top performers to design the system, my bottom performers to test it. And then once the bottom performers move up, that's when I look at rolling it out to everyone. Now, question 4, keep in mind this is at this specific level. I hear this question all the time. Should I focus on one use case, for example, marketing, writing, planning, or explore many? Now, for this particular belt level, you're just starting to feel confident. You're just getting to the point where you're doing some experimenting. I encourage you to play around a little bit. However, what I would strongly encourage is you pick one use case that you know you can dominate in, and you get the real value, you optimize it, you get the most benefit from it, and then you pick a second. So at this level, I am preaching to people that they should be eliminating what they can, automating as much as they can, and then finally delegating as much as they can. And the goal is to, at this level, identify and eliminate, automate, or delegate at least 10 hours a week from your work week. So if you need multiple use cases to get to that 10 hours, that all means, but really truly pick one, master it, get absolutely confident in it, and then the next. So that might sound like counterintuitive. I know a lot of people want to do a lot of things. I'm a fan of, I think it was Jeff Olson wrote The Slight Edge. And basically, he talks about being 1% better today than you were yesterday and compounding that over a year. I would rather see incremental gains that have a big impact versus sporadic, oh, we tried that, it didn't work, so we stopped. So think of this as building layers in a house or building it up as you go, building floors. You want to make sure your foundation is solid before you try to build too high. Question 5, how do I stay motivated when results still feel inconsistent? This is actually a really good example of good versus sporadic implementation. If you're seeing a steady progression of improvement, if you're constantly improving, you will be motivated to keep going. And by the way, motivated is not the right word here. And what I mean is motivated means someone else is trying to motivate me. I should be inspired and want to motivate myself. So what I find, motivation externally applied is never going to work. And by the way, we created the Digital Dojo on this premise. I don't want you to show up at a meeting and hope that you're feeling motivated or inspired. I want you to build the habits so that you're consistently getting results. And really, truly, that is the only way I see people staying motivated is when they see consistent results. So if you are feeling like your results are inconsistent, pick one thing. And again, this is the case of being a specialist, not a generalist. Pick one thing, optimize it, eliminate, automate, delegate. Make sure you're getting the absolute best result possible from one thing, and then move on to the next thing. And again, if you want to fix 100 things at once, I guarantee you're going to break 95 of them at least. Whereas if you fix one thing and then you build on that, that's where you build some momentum. So the key is, and everything I do is built around the Pareto principle, we want to focus on how do we eliminate the waste and how do we optimize the gains of Pareto. So to me, if you can find those big moments by stacking a whole bunch of small results consistently, you will always want to keep improving, keep moving forward. So that's where we spend our time, is finding the consistent gains we can all benefit from. Question 6. Is there a right balance between human intuition and AI structure? And you may not have thought of this question in this manner, but I think there is that eternal struggle between balance. Are we using AI enough? Are we relying on our humans? And what I want to say is, wherever possible, we want to eliminate, automate, delegate, so that our human beings are focusing only on their highest and best use of their time and energy, and then letting AI and automation do the rest of the work. So, the right balance, and this is a delicate balance, it's the point where we've talked about augmented intelligence, which to me is the blend of artificial intelligence and authentic intelligence, which is our humans. When we balance that right, we have authentic and artificial intelligence working together. We end up with a third type of intelligence I call augmented intelligence. And that's the sweet spot. Now, I want to be clear, the sweet spot where we balance authentic and artificial intelligence for augmented intelligence is individual to the human and to the role and to the activities. So if your humans are seeing more mistakes and the mistakes are rising and AI is slowing them down, we've missed the balancing point. If, however, they're going faster and they're making more mistakes, we've missed the balancing point. So this is not a one size fits all easy target for everybody. It is up to the individuals. And I say roles because some roles require deep human interaction. Some roles, humans can be less involved. So, for example, if you're writing poetry, um, using AI to write the poetry might feel like the human is giving up or cheating. Whereas if you're using AI to find synonyms, antonyms, homonyms, whatever for the words to make the poem better, that's closer to the right balance. So the key is, as long as the human is acting as the adult and is having the final say, I think we can get to the right balance quickly. Now, I've seen some cases where the humans have an incentive that actually favors relying too heavily on AI and not enough on the human. So, as an example, if you're in an organization and you pay external contractors per hour, they're going to want to slow down and not use AI as fast as possible. And I believe, and to me, this is a little bit of a rant, but my excitement for the future is that we will kill the billable hour once and for all. Ron Baker once told me that was his life's mission. The reality is, if we can perform a high level task at a high level quality output very quickly, does the hour spent or the time spent to create it actually matter anymore? And I really think that human beings are going to be freed from the myth that time equals value, and we're going to see a lot of leverage. So to me, that is pushing the envelope and being on the edge of things. But really, truly, your humans should be, in my opinion, at least 10 times faster, at least 10 times more effective, and still produce a higher quality output. Now, for the record, when I rush things too quickly, sometimes I miss little details. I rely on AI to help me catch those, not completely, but we are a partnership. And at the end of the day, I'm worried about the total package deliverable, not necessarily the minute steps that got me there. So to me, the right balance is when human and AI are in harmony as they create things. And again, the human still retains ownership and control as the adult in the conversation. Question 7. How can I teach my team or peers what I've learned without overwhelming them? So, this is a wonderful question. And I will say this is probably where I spend a lot of my time. And I'm going to be really blunt. The reason the dojo exists is I've overwhelmed a lot of people. Not intentionally, but because I was in the right place. I cared a lot. I'm a raving fan of AI in general. Generative AI used correctly, absolutely. So, one of the things I suggest to people, and this is part of our program, bring your team or peers into our digital dojo. Now, again, I don't care if they advance all the way through or if they just come and take our foundations course. The reality is, in most learning, people struggle because, first and foremost, they skip the step where they learn the language of the thing they're learning. So, for example, if I go to university and I want to learn how to do accounting work, I need to learn the language of accounting. Same with any other industry on the planet, any other job. I need to learn the vocabulary so that I know how to ask questions. So, one of the things I do, we use the Pareto principle. We teach the bare minimum vocabulary so that people can communicate and understand and grow within the environment they need to grow in. The other thing we do is we teach the skills in small incremental steps. So if you've made it this far in the blue belt in our digital dojo, I hope you understand that each of the steps we built for you and that you followed were all designed intentionally to build, first and foremost, confidence. So we taught you the belief system that you needed to adopt. Then we built the confidence through practical theory. And we built that confidence further by practicing. So if you want people to embrace technology like ChatGPT, start with the foundational language. What do they need to know? Believe it or not, I can teach you about prompts right now, and you understand what I mean by that word. But apparently, there's a population out there, I don't meet them much anymore. They literally don't know what the word prompt means. To somebody who doesn't work with technology, maybe you got a line worker at a factory, the word prompt probably means little to them other than maybe they have to be prompt, they have to be on time for their job. So we want to give people the vocabulary to embrace the skills. And then what we want is, again, give them one thing that they can apply immediately, give them wins so that they can build on that foundation of skill. So, for the record, maybe you've got a team and they have one thing that they need to use ChatGPT for. They do not need to learn everything we're teaching in the digital dojo. They just need to learn the system for that one thing. So, recognize that this body of knowledge is vast. I would say almost infinite by now. You need to give them the small little bite-sized chunks. There's the old adage, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Show them that one bite at a time. Don't give them the whole elephant and say, have at it. Question 8. What's the easiest way to compare tools and decide which one belongs in my stack? This might not be a question you're immediately thinking, but I promise you at some point you are going to think it. One of the things I tell people that feels counterintuitive, but trust me, it works. I assume everything is hype and someone trying to blow smoke up my backside until I identify an actual practical use for it. And this is where the world of tech gets really cloudy because there's a lot of shiny objects, a lot of people saying, oh, you got to buy this or oh, you need that. The reality is, I start small and I add only as I need to. So I'm not looking to add 1,000 things. And really, truly, we talk about the experimental method, the scientific method. I'm a firm believer in adding only absolutely necessary. So to make that clear, and this is why I focused the Digital Dojo on ChatGPT, I believe that ChatGPT has 1,000 different uses. And if we optimize and we use them well, we can get a lot of time savings in our life. Now, I early on made a choice and I focused on ChatGPT, and I've chosen to master it because that was important to me. Think about the minimum tool set that can add to your business. And one of the things I do always is I will look at my rock star best performers, and usually they have fewer tools and they're focused on mastering them rather than having a whole bunch of tools that they don't know what to use. And by the way, if you want to overwhelm your team or crush productivity or morale, have a dozen different ways to do something with a dozen different tools. People get frustrated and they just quit trying. So for me, every time I identify a gap, I will look at that gap and I will do a little bit of research. And by the way, ChatGPT is really good at helping you identify gaps and solutions to fill them. Only once I've identified an actual business problem, an actual gap, then I start to look at how do I close that gap and what is the minimum tool set that can close that. So, for example, and this is extreme, I don't expect anyone else to buy into this but me. My entire business, everything I do, is run based on the Google ecosystem and ChatGPT. I currently have Calendly for scheduling meetings. I'm about to unplug that from my stack and rely heavily on the Google Calendar. So for me, that works. I use a lot of the Google tools. I spend almost all day, every day in Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, Google Meets. And of course, I use Gemini. It's my second favorite generative AI. But really, truly, I look at things from the perspective that the less tools I have, the more productive I can be. So I'm more effective, more efficient. And that's what I do is I try to eliminate tools wherever needed. And early on, I struggled because there was a couple of things I really wanted to do, but I couldn't find a way to do it within the Google ecosystem. And what I decided at the end was to get rid of that complexity was worth something. And so I eliminated a couple of things from my business so that I could focus on the things that I do well within the Google ecosystem. So that's my extreme. And believe it or not, I love the fact that I can run a highly scalable business using $1 billion infrastructure in the Google space with very, very minimal. And my tech costs are about per user about $40 a month. You can't beat that. Now, again, if you're in an industry with specific tools, find tools that integrate well with each other. Question 9, how do I measure whether AI is improving my thinking, not just saving time? How do I measure whether AI is improving my thinking, not just saving time? Now, believe it or not, I don't hear this question a lot. What I hear is, what if AI makes me stupid? So I will answer it the way I believe it should be asked, and I will also address it. There is a lot of nonsense out there about AI is going to make me stupid. It's going to make me lazy. There are people, I'm going to sound really rude. I would say they're the equivalent of flat earthers and Luddites. They will have you believe that AI will end humanity. It destroys our ability to think. Here's the secret: how you use it determines how it impacts you. So, for me personally, I spend a lot of time thinking about how I think, and I use ChatGPT to challenge my thinking. Most people don't, but I do. And basically, what I've found, I think in frameworks, I think in mental models. The more I challenge myself, the better I get at thinking. And yes, critical thinking is a dying art, apparently. But if you are acting like an adult and you are supervising your AI tool, you will become sharper and better. And that's the key. In my humble opinion, ChatGPT and other generative AIs will give us colossal time savings. However, if we are lazy and we're asking for to be spoon fed, it will also come at the cost of our thinking abilities. So, what we do, we teach people in the dojo, we start to think in systems language, and we start to think about the big picture, and we start to look strategic. And that's where I think ChatGPT is amazing. It can help us be more strategic, which makes us more effective so that our tactics can become more efficient. So, believe it or not, I think there's an opportunity. We're going to learn to think better, and we're also going to question being busy for the sake of busy. So, how do we measure it? This is actually fun and really, truly my measurement. May be different from yours, and I challenge you to find your measurement. My measurement is basically a simple a simple assessment I have that I use with my clients, and we call it the heaven or hell exercise. And basically, what I'm looking at is, on average, am I spending more of my day in high level strategic heaven for me, or in low level tactical hell to me? And by the way, heaven or hell is very dependent on the person. My version of heaven is strategy. My version of hell is checklists and tactics. So I love designing the systems. I love optimizing them. I don't want to be the person on the line, adding one part to a moving assembly and waiting for the next piece to come. I want to see the big picture, and I want to see what I'm building. So the measurement is really simple. Is my stress levels going down? Is my enjoyment going up? And is my business more successful, more profitable? So the secret here is figure out what is critical and important to you and do that. So for me personally, what is most important is impact, helping other people, and getting paid what I'm worth. So if I'm having more impact, I'm helping more people, and I'm getting paid more, then that is my measure of success. Now, question 10: what does mastery actually look like at this level? So, my overall view of mastery, I think I've explained this at other parts of the course. I will make sure to explain it here. Overall mastery is where I've learned the skills I need to feel confident. So I've built that foundation and I'm confident. And I've taught other people how to build the skills they need to get to this level and be competent. And then the third element of mastery to me is innovation or optimization. So for our typical courses, our students in the digital dojo, mastery at the blue belt level means that you're confident You've got systems in place in your business. You've built ChatGPT into some of your workflows, and you're starting to develop your team as systems thinkers. And by the way, this becomes fun because not only are we working less, having less stress, we're fighting fewer fires, but basically our meetings and our time with our team is about how do we do this better. If you think about it, the difference between a championship winning team and a team that is not winning is going to be excitement. So if you're, right now as I film this, record this, we're in I think the World Series. The Blue Jays are playing. If they win and they're winning, the locker room is going to be a happy place and they're going to celebrate. If they're losing, from the old poem, there's no joy in Mudville. Casey at the bat, he strikes out. There's no joy in Mudville. And really, truly, I want you to understand, if your team's morale is not where you'd like it to be, if they're not producing the results you hope they'd produce, mastery is about elevating your entire team. So there is some pressure here because, to quote the phrase, rising tides lift all ships. The goal here with your mastery is to build that level and bring others up with you. And so my vision of mastery here is that your rock stars will be crushing it even more. They're loving what they do. They're hitting home runs all day long. But also your lower level teammates are starting to spend more time doing better things at a higher level. And basically they're looking to grow as a team. And by the way, once you start to remove time pressure, here's the thing. When somebody is stressed by time, their nervous system is actually triggered and they go into fight, flight, or freeze. When somebody has performance issues at work, they're literally not the best version of themselves. Literally, their brain is in fight, flight, or freeze, and they're going to blame others. They're going to have friction and tension. When everybody is out of that fight, flight, or freeze, then we start to look at how do we make this a better place to be. So mastery in my perfect world is a happier workplace. Now, whether you work with the team, you got a dozen people, or maybe you are a solopreneur, mastery is that balance where the machines are doing the work they're supposed to do, the humans are doing their highest and best use, and everybody has the time to look at the business and say, how do we improve this? What else do we need to do? So to me, that is what mastery looks like. We have a bonus 11th question, and that is, what if I'm not seeing the results I expected or hoped for? How do I get help? And I want to teach you my favorite tool. And believe it or not, my favorite tool for getting help with ChatGPT is ChatGPT. And somebody once told me that that's the equivalent of asking a piece of IKEA furniture how to help you assemble it. The reality is I beg to differ. And so here's what I'm going to share as a bonus is ChatGPT literally is the best tool to teach you how to use it. And one thing I want to say, I love the concept of the large language models. We are living in unprecedented times, and it is truly a unique tool because it can actually help you learn how to use it better. So my two little hacks that I use, first, I'll give you sort of my observation. When I was first learning how to use ChatGPT, I started asking it questions. I was curious, and I noticed that every time I give it a prompt, it would paraphrase back to me what I was asking for and then give me an answer. And I said, I'd like to learn how to communicate better. Please help me communicate better. And so it taught me how to communicate better. I'm autistic, and sometimes normal people are a little bit of a mystery to me. ChatGPT has helped me ask clarifying questions, and understand things better. So it's hugely powerful. So my little two-step framework is, first and foremost, you have your conversation, you go back and forth, and then you say, what questions should I have asked you that I haven't? And then it'll ask you those questions, you answer it. And then the final thing, tip 2, what questions would you have of me before we finalize this? And so by asking it what questions I should ask and what questions I should answer, it helps me get a better answer. And then I wrap it up and say, thank you. Could you help me summarize this? And how could I optimize and get this result faster, better next time? So that's a little bonus tip for our blue belt level. Welcome, and I'll see you in the dojo. Now, I just want to recap the digital dojo. By now, you are the hopeful experimenter, and you should be ready to move into confident operator. So that is the final space where you are going to feel like you are ready to be a leader rather than a follower. So this is, again, I'm not sharing this to pitch people. We invite people to join where they are, stay where they need to be. If you want to advance, you can advance. But really, by now, you should be playing around, having a little fun, and starting to optimize your team. We're building the foundation so that you can be what we call a confident operator. So thank you for your time. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit us at pharosbusiness.com/digital dojo.